Like many other programs, Rhino has a layer management system that is critical to organizing your document's workflow. Currently, all our geometries are on one layer, so let's create some new layers and customize them so our document's a bit easier to read and use. I'm going to come to the Layers panel on the right, and I'm going to select these colored layers we've got here by default. I'm going to select them all, and then come up to this red cross and delete them. Then I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this layer Points. Currently, all the geometry we've created so far has been modeled on the default layer in Rhino. So I want to go and change the layers of each of these geometries, and we can do this by selecting our geometries. So let's select our point geometries with a marquee selection. Then I'm going to right click on the points layer and select Change Object Layer. There's a few ways we can test that this change has worked. We could turn on and off this light bulb on our points layer, and you can see that the points in our geometry will turn on and off, which tells us that it's on the correct layer. We can also change the color of this layer, and I'm going to click on this little color icon here, and I'm going to change this to a blue color. We can also lock these points, so if we don't want to accidentally move these points out of their current location, we can click on this little lock icon, and you'll see if I try and select the points now, I can't select them or accidentally move them around. Let's create another new layer and call it Curves. Let's select the curve geometries and its text, and this time we're going to use a command called Change Layer. A Change Layer dialog box will appear. Let's select the curves layer that we want to change to, and then click OK. We can toggle that light bulb on and off, and we'll see that the curves have changed layer. Let's change the color of this layer as well. I'm going to make it red. Let's create another new layer, and let's call it Others. Within this, we're going to create sub-layers for all of the other geometry categories. So to create a sub-layer, click once on the Others layer so it's selected, and then come up right next to the new layer icon and click New Sub-Layer. I'm going to call this layer Surfaces. Let's create another sub-layer below this. To do this, don't click sub-layer again, click another new layer below. Let's call this Poly Surfaces. Now, rather than clicking the new layer icon all the time, we can actually hit the Tab button, and this is a shortcut that will enable us to create a new layer. So I'm going to hit Tab and call this layer Meshes, and then hit Tab again and call this layer Sub D. Let's go and select the surfaces and change these geometries to the surface layer, and do this for each of our geometry categories. If we go and lock our surfaces layer, you'll notice that we can't select our surfaces, but we can select other geometries inside of that group. I can also turn the surfaces layer on or off, and that won't affect the other layers either. But if I go and lock the Others layer, you'll see we get these semi-locked icons and all of the sub-layers under Others. Now if I try and select any of this geometry, you'll see I can't, and this tells me that all of these layers are now locked. So these layers are actually inheriting the locked status of their parent layer, the Others layer. This is true for visibility as well. If I turn the Others layer off, all of the sub-layers will turn off as well. One thing that sub-layers don't inherit, however, is colors. So if I go and change the Others layer to, say, a dark green color, you'll notice that none of the sub-layers actually inherit this color. This is the same for material layers as well. I could now go and change the surfaces layer to a different color, say a cyan, and you'll notice that that sub-layer inherits its own color. So you could see how this would be useful for more complex projects like a building, where you might want your floor slabs on one layer, your windows on another, or even for designing options in a project that are all neatly organized onto layers.